This is part 2 of creating a rough. Last time in part 1 we used Google Earth. This time I'm going to show you just a couple of things with Google Sketchup. Now let me preface this by saying that there are some pretty elaborate YouTube videos and things available on the internet if you'd like to see a particular painting start to finish using some of these processes. But that's not really my goal here. My goal here is just to introduce you to the possibilities that exist. And if this is something that appeals to you, then, by all means, have at it. So here I'm in SketchUp, and what I did is I went to the 3D warehouse just by downloading a 3D model. I searched for a helicopter. I wasn't real picky about which one, and right here I'm just going through the different views, and I'm sticking with shaded with textures. What I'm doing here is just kind of setting up my image, and this is just one way to do it. On the right in Photoshop I have a Google Earth image, and I'm just kind of putting this SketchUp screenshot next to it. So what I did was I just kind of lined up the perspective in a basic way, took a screenshot, and I'm just dragging it in. I actually put two of them in here, slightly different perspectives, and right here you can see I'm just going through different blend modes. So again, this is just a way to create a rough. It's just a basic underpainting, really. Just getting rid of some axis lines here. And again, there's a better way to do this if you want to be much more detailed. For me, I don't like to spend a lot of time in the preparation. I just like to quickly construct my composition in a very rough way, and then I like to spend my time painting. But I will say that, a good composition, a good start will yield better results. So there's just an eyeball perspective with Google SketchUp. I just grab some 3D models. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a photo that I've taken, and I'm going to show you how to use 3D elements in Photoshop. Now this one's just in Photoshop. So I've duplicated my image, desaturated it, pumped up the levels a little bit, and created high contrast. Here I have a moon texture. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a 3D object in Photoshop with this moon texture. So I'm just going to stretch that to the layer. I'm going to go new shape from layer and create the moon. And here I'm just scaling that up. I'm going to make the moon a little ridiculous here and push it back there in the background. Because it's spherical, I don't have to worry about the perspective at all. Just adjusting some color and some glow, things like that. Once I'm happy with this, I'll just rasterize that. Makes it a little easier to work with. And I can just kind of, there's a little bit peeking out the bottom. Give it some outer glow. And it's a quick way to get a pretty realistic looking image using the 3D menu in Photoshop. Another thing you can do in here is you can create a simple 3D object in SketchUp. So here I'm just going to do some quick blocks here for, let's just say, a cluster of buildings. And again, I can texturize those and give them windows and stuff. What I've learned though is that the more complex the model, the flakier this operation is. So I just exported them from Google SketchUp as a Google Earth file, a KMZ file. And then I can go to the 3D menu and just open those up in Photoshop. So here's my photo from Palm Springs, and I can start to work with the horizon line, the perspective. Just kind of playing around with it here. Push these buildings in the back. Again, I'm not going through every key command or whatever. I'm just letting you know that this stuff exists. It's out there. So, yeah, so I'm just going to line this up. So give me a good sketch. I don't have to worry about the linear perspective because these buildings are by themselves. Again, rasterize that so it gives me something to work with, a little low opacity. Again, I can take a straight texture and transform it and add it to this. I could, just freehand draw. Here I'm just doing a quick layer mask. And again, for me, like this would be plenty, just really, really rough. It's actually the way I prefer it. But maybe I'll do another video here where I actually spend a lot more time in Sketchup and kind of work with that. I am really, really interested in using 3D software in conjunction with Photoshop. I don't want you to think that Photoshop is the only tool out there for digital painting. And you find that most digital artists and digital designers will use SketchUp or some other 3D program. So I'm just going to knock a little blur on here just to push it back a little bit. And again, here's just a sketch layer. I'll just scribble some texture on there. I don't know, some windows or something. Just letting you know that, yes, this can be done freehand. You could, like I said, you could take a photo and transform that with the distort pretty easily. So here I'm just going to add some textures, and I started to do this. You could grab a texture here, and like I said, I could just copy and paste that in. I'm not really gonna go through that. You could also apply the texture within SketchUp if you want. I find that kind of looks a little bit tiled. You don't have as much control with it as you might in Photoshop. I mean, like I said, it's good for an underpainting. It's good to kind of get you started. But overall, I wouldn't worry about that. And within Photoshop as well, they have some 3D content online. Here I am just showing you how you can quickly add some textures within SketchUp. Like I said, it's a little tiled, but gives you the idea here. Next is just going to be a simple, little tutorial on within SketchUp, within the 3D warehouse. We're just going to grab a train and just create from scratch within SketchUp. Just kind of create your plate for Photoshop at that point. So here I've got this Russian train. And I'm just kind of finding the perspective I want. Again, this is all just time savers with perspective. It allows me to get those objects into 3D space, and then I can work with them much easier without having to line everything up. And I could have gone a lot more elaborate with this. I could have built station and all that stuff within SketchUp, even using simple blocks. Still going to be a major time saver. And these are just tools. Now you could get very specific in here and you could trace this out. I would caution you to not use the actual model within your drawing. When you start painting opaquely, this stuff should disappear. So here you can see I'm just adding perspective paths in there, just like I would any kind of plate painting. I would kind of find the camera lens and the angle and all that stuff. So just creating some paths. And we've done this before. This is nothing new. This should be old hat by now. Just to give you an idea. Got to have something to go with. Just kind of putting mine on 3 separate paths here. The other thing you can do with SketchUp, which I'm not going to really show you in this video, is you can create scenes. So like if I like this, I can make this a scene. I can also add a second scene and throw shadows and light onto this and experiment with that. Add another scene within this project and just kind of flip-flop back and forth, and that would give me a lot more detail to work with. Again, that's not the point of this video. I'm just showing you that this stuff exists. There's a workflow out there for doing this. Here, I'll just scribble some stuff on here. I don't even know what I'm doing. There's some train robbers on top of the train, I guess. Modern day Western. This guy's just kind of laying down. Speeding train. I'm just using again, the perspective lines here. I'm just kind of doing some quick scribbles so you can see how that perspective grid would work. Again, nothing detailed here, just very random, quick structures. But obviously, if I was going to do this for real, I would just build that all in SketchUp. Get all that perspective finished rather quickly. And spend my time on textures and lighting and things like that. Not linear perspective. Most of my students will tell you that perspective is the most boring thing for them to work on. So just trying to give you guys an easier workaround here. So I'm just detailing the person out a little bit. Maybe there's a driver here robbing the train. Some people bystanding. Here I'm just going to lasso these out, put them on different planes, but still all within that perspective grid. I just have a quick action on my keyboard for Photoshop. It allows me just to, just by hitting F5, it creates that adjustment layer and helps me. I also like this because you can crop and really get, once you get your perspective all set up and it's pretty straightforward and easy, when you crop it, you can rotate it and really push the dynamic look of your work. So in this one, rather than work with an object like a train or something, this is kind of what we did in Google Earth. But I'm just going to show you how to use SketchUp, and this is basically how to create an environment instead of just an object. So I'm just going to create a simple shelter here. Now obviously you would probably want to have some reference doing this. I've found that anytime I work in SketchUp and just try to create a building, yeah, I can make something that's passable, but I'm not an architect, so a lot of times mine look very simple, and just little things like parts of a window or something that I wouldn't think of are missing. And sometimes I can't even articulate what's wrong with it. I just know that this doesn't look right. It looks too simple, cartoonish. But I'm just, again, just using this as a quick underpainting tool. Here I'm just trucking around trying to get some of these extra lines out of there. I like to always keep that little Google lady there for a little bit of reference. Now in the bottom right hand corner of Google SketchUp, as I drag things out, it gives me the dimensions. So typically I would just work with that and type in dimensions, what I think is normal for a door and all that stuff. But here I've created this 3D space, and I can go in it. I can do a walk around. I can create those scenes like I was saying. I can create a camera. I can really mess with the time of day and the shadows. I won't do all that in this video, but that's out there. It's available. Some little porch here. Just trying to clone this and move it so I can extrude it. I usually like to just do the ground last. I just pull this stuff down. I know it's all uneven, and that's fine. It doesn't really matter at this point. I can do this now, just to show you how I can work with 3D Warehouse along with this model. Just grab the simple tree and get that in there and just kind of slap that in my scene. I don't think my tree is really even on the ground plane. I just need it to look good for my still. As long as I can get that still image, I feel comfortable. So here I'm slapping in the ground, and you can see those columns actually stick out underneath. But one of the things that I found that people do a lot of in SketchUp is they just make the ground perfectly flat. Now, if you're inside a gymnasium, that makes a lot of sense to me, but typically there's a little bit of variation in the ground. So I would recommend that you mess with that. Here again are just the different views. I can even make this look really sketchy. To me, that only works if you're trying to pass this off as a drawing. And don't get me wrong, this is your creation. You created this. There's nothing different from this than using Photoshop. It's just, again, you're using a different tool. It's like your pastel or your scratch board. It's just a different tool to get to the end, that picture in your head. So I'm just throwing in some quick textures here. The other thing I would recommend with the textures is that you download your own. You can go to cgtextures.com. It's a great website. It's got, buildings and animals and all kinds of stuff. And if you import that into SketchUp, create your own textures, you're going to get a much more unique look than what's out there. Again, I'm just slapping in ugly colors and textures. None of this stuff really even goes together. Some of my wall color choices are very questionable. You'll see that wall on the left looks really green. That's just the light. It's just the lighting. You can create what's called an X-ray look in SketchUp that allows you to see through a particular wall. Just got a few more textures to add here. And the cool thing about this is you can create your model and you can reuse it. So like if I have if I spend a lot of time and have a really elaborate building, I can use it for this view, and then later on another painting I can kind of slap it together with other buildings, and it would give me a lot to work from. I can already have that started. So you would see, like, over time your library would get pretty full of just reusable starting points. And for me, anything that saves time works, as long as it helps the work. I go on and on about saving time, but if it, the bottom line, at the end of the day, if it doesn't make the work look good, it's not worth doing. Sometimes I'd rather just do things the long way, do things by hand, sketch it on paper even, and just, you gotta not limit yourself. You can't say, oh, I'm working digitally, so I have to use Photoshop. Or I am working digitally, so I can't sketch this on a piece of paper because that's not digital. I would do this all the time. I've even printed out digital drawings in blue or black and inked them or watercolored them after the fact. So this is artwork by Wen Zhuin. You can see his DeviantArt post there, and you can see how he started with those Google SketchUp blocks. This is a flooded city, and step by step he's taking these textures here, these flat textures, he's adding them to the buildings, so you can see how his city looks like it's underwater. A lot of photo texturing going on, and then he takes this into Photoshop And this is a great step by step. You can see how he's adding light sources and textures and really like the story. I love this part. He's really adding the story to the painting without having to be too concerned with all the perspective. So he's got some cool work. I really suggest you check out his DeviantArt page. And right here's the final. So, you know, even those jets, you could create those in SketchUp if you wanted to. Just a really cool way. You know, I would imagine that, you know, I don't want you to get the idea that every time you're doing SketchUp you have to do these massive cityscapes. That's simply not true. It can be a picture within your living room. It could be the Last Supper. It could be inside a car. And you can use these SketchUp and these 3D tools to help you with those angles and perspective. Hope this helps, and thanks for watching.